came for life.
This is TV18 and you're watching CNBC TV18.
Presented by National Stock Exchange.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.
Hello and welcome to another episode of NSE FinWiz powered by CNBC TV18. Today we're in Kolkata at the head office of one of India's leading plywood manufacturing companies, Century Ply. Century Ply is one of India's largest sellers of multi-use plywood and decorative coating in the organized plywood market. From flexible plywood that offers a unique blend of form and functionality to specially treated fire-retardant plywood, the company has successfully created a niche for itself in the highly competitive lifestyle segment. In its 26th year of operations, Century Ply enjoys a unique brand identity as a market leader with deliverables that cater to industry standards and expectations. Focusing on our theme for the series, NSE FinWiz visited Century Ply in Kolkata to gauge thoughts and notions of young professionals on investments and financial planning.
I do invest in stage of this career. Whatever the investment is very preliminary, but however I did the investment mainly in insurance sector and the long-term deposit sector.
There are plenty of things which comes, I guess, especially the mutual funds, but those which are the secure one, these may be, I guess, the flexible ones, the secure ones, Provident Fund, LIC and all those stuff, that I'm pretty much aware of, but the flexible part I'm not, especially the mutual funds. I always find it a bit risky.
I'm very much interested in share markets. I don't have so much knowledge in this, so I'd definitely like to ask them to guide us how to invest. And one more thing, that according to my earnings, whether my portfolios are right or not.
I would like to ask financial advisors to tell me about investment in properties, also in shares, but properties is good because real estate is in booming space.
As per my opinion, investment means to make any individual net worth increase. Not only that, it also helps to reach the financial goal faster than the desired time.
Well, we're now joined by our two very special experts. We have Mr. Ashish Shankar, who's the Head Investment Advisory at Motilal Oswal Private Wealth Management. And we have Mr. Pankaj Matpal, who's a Certified Financial Planner and a Director at Optima Money Managers. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me here. Pankaj, first question to you. What are the first baby steps to get on the correct investment plan?
The most important thing, that first you should set your goal. And then think that where to invest. So goal can be a short term, medium term, long term. So basis of your goal, your risk appetite and your investment of horizon, then you can decide that what kind of asset will be suitable for you. If you're investing for long term, you know that you can take a little more risk because you have time to achieve that goal, then definitely you can think about investing in equity. If you are thinking about very short term, you may have less exposure in equity. So that we can decide only once you know that how much time you have to achieve that goal. So goal setting is the most important thing before investing.
Okay. Ashish, building on to that, now given goal setting is really important, but it's such a huge number to set up because, and let's assume there are people here who are not married, they're in their first job. How do they start setting a goal for marriage or retirement or kids? You know, it's that big number in front of them. How do we overcome that?
Yeah, so it's so ironical, you know, when you start working, you know, if you tell somebody to start thinking of retirement, you know, it's very ironical. But having said that, I think it's very important for one to understand what one's goals and objectives in life are first. Because, you know, unlike, let's say, Western countries, in India, we don't have a safety net. So one needs to first understand as to what are the expenses that one is going to incur over the next few years of his working life. You know, what are the safety nets he needs to build.
So what do you mean by the safety net?
Okay. So, you know, unlike, let's say, you know, 10, 15 years back, today losing a job is not a taboo. Okay. So for a salaried professional, he needs to make sure that whatever he's planning or whatever investments he's making, he has a safety net around him. So to give you an example, today some of the industries are so volatile that one needs to definitely have about 6 months or 1 year salary in his bank, so that if something goes wrong, you have a fallback. Secondly, there are other safety nets that one needs to build, like insurance. I think the first thing one should do is do life insurance. Once you've covered your life, then you look at medical, because medical expenses in India are going to shoot up manifold, over the next few years. And, we sometimes get too comfortable with the cover that our employers provide, not knowing that, unlike, previously, if we go back to our parents and, the earlier generation, people used to be in jobs for 20, 25 years. So you were never bothered about some of these things. But today, most industries are dynamic and people do change jobs. So one needs to ensure that you have safety nets in place before you start planning for investments.
Okay. Important point there. Pankaj, you were earlier talking about with goal setting, you mentioned about choosing the correct asset class, which is also called asset allocation, which is like a technical term. What is asset allocation? What are the main assets that we should be putting our money in?
See, asset classes are majorly equity, commodity or real estate. Now, there are different ways of investing in asset classes. You can invest directly or indirectly through mutual funds or some other vehicle to invest in those asset classes. So, there are different reasons for investing in those asset classes. All asset classes are important. As he just mentioned that you want to invest, you want to keep some money for a contingency. So definitely when we talk about contingency, we cannot think about equity investment, because you may need that money any moment. So for this kind of investment, you have to keep some money in your bank account, which may not give you very good returns, but liquidity is very good. You may need money at 2 o'clock in the night. So definitely you would like to have some money in your saving bank account. Similarly, there are some liquid funds of mutual funds. So those can be a good investment choice for this kind of objective. But when you talk about a long-term goal where you want to create wealth, then definitely you have to think about equity or real estate, which may give you returns higher than inflation. So that is why I said initially also, based on your objective of investment and risk appetite, then you have to think about asset allocation. Okay. But in any situation, it is very important that you should have proper asset allocation. The allocation of a particular asset may be high or less, more or less, but there should be a proper asset allocation. You should have investment across the asset classes. That is important.
Okay, great. Ashish, now the idea is again, so asset allocation is important. You set your goals, you do your asset allocations, right. But there's always like, okay, how much? Because there is one thumb rule that people read about, which is 100 minus your age should be invested in equities. Do you believe in that thumb rule, or how can people go about investing correctly?
Just to build on what Pankaj said, when you're investing for the long term or medium term, I think the biggest enemy is inflation. There's this guy called inflation who's growing at 8%. So any investment that you make post-tax has to beat inflation. So if you've not done post-tax 8 or 9% on your investments, you're basically where you are, or you're losing wealth every year. Okay. Now, once you have that in mind, then you look at various asset classes and decide where I should be putting my money. Now, to my mind, there is absolutely no confusion. In the long run, equities delivered the highest, return over inflation. And the reason for that is, a business is where, ideas, entrepreneurship and resources come together to create magic. So if you look at some of the good quality businesses, they have delivered exponential returns over a period of time. Now, if you don't have the time or the inclination to buy stocks directly or understand businesses, today we have many equity mutual funds which have a track record of over 20-25 years, okay, and which have delivered, closer to 22% per annum and handsomely beaten inflation over a period of time. I think the fear while investing in equities that everyone has in his mind is volatility. What if I put my money today and the markets sell off 20% or 30%? Now just try and remember that over the last 30 or 25 odd years, you've had the toughest of situations around you. Okay, you've had the 9/11 happening, you've had governments changing, you had tremendous problems that we've faced on the external front, but still businesses have delivered. Because there's something in entrepreneurship which creates magic over a period of time. So to my mind, 100, minus your age may not be necessarily relevant. So once you've created your safety net and you know that this is money that you're saving for, let's say, could be retirement, could be something that you need 10 years down the line or 15 years down the line, that money has to go into equities. There is absolutely no choice you have. Okay. Because most of the other instruments post-tax are setting you back by 8% every year. Remember that at the back of your mind whenever you invest your money. Okay.
You're watching NSE FinWiz powered by CNBC TV 18. It's time for a very short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
बेगम ताजमहल जरूर बनेगा, ये शाहजहां का वादा है।
400 साल से सुनती आ रही हूँ, ताजमहल बनेगा कब?
जाओ कहीं से भी ढूंढ के लाओ जमीन। नहीं मिली क्या? मिल गई जहाँपना। इतनी सी जमीन।
प्लॉट्स, ऑफिसेज, फ्लैट्स सब है 99acres.com पे जहाँपना। बाबर रोड, हुमायूं रोड, अकबर रोड, फाइनेंस भी है जहाँपना।
प्रॉपर्टी जो बिकती है पहले यहाँ दिखती है। Buy, sell, rent at 99acres.com.
We had a session at Raymond's store where they told us how to dressing up for success and all. So I guess that session helped us a lot in terms of preparing a mental mindset, not just in terms of a dressing sense, but how to carry ourselves with confidence and face such senior people with confidence. I guess first impression is the last impression.
Comfort and quality is something which I always look for. It's important for us to expose ourselves to dressing right.
Dressing for success with Raymond, the complete man. Welcome to India's business newsroom. CNBC TV 18 is India's #1 business news channel in 2014. CNBC TV 18, 14 years of business leadership.
India's and Asia's largest gear manufacturer, Allocation, gearing the future.
I love cars and I test them to the very limit and sometimes beyond.
I have your weekly dose of news, analysis and exclusive happenings in the automotive sector.
I've tested every motorcycle launched in India for the past 13 years. I help you make the right buying decision.
I am Overdrive.
I am Overdrive.
I am Overdrive.
Servo presents Overdrive at these times.
Overdrive, presented by Servo at Life, in association with Ford Figo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Tata Crucible Corporate Quiz 2013, the national finale of Tata Crucible. It's time for us to move straight into the battle here today.
This week, Tata Crucible completes the final leg. 8 national teams from India's biggest corporate houses don their thinking caps to win the coveted national final at these times.
A knowledge initiative by the Tata Group. Leadership with trust.
Welcome back. This is NSE FinWiz powered by CNBC TV 18. Pankaj, Ashish spoke about mutual funds. Now, most of us know about mutual funds, but there might be some who are not too sure what mutual funds is. So, for them, could you just briefly explain what exactly is a mutual fund?
See, mutual fund is basically that money is pooled to invest collectively in a basket of products. Now, this underlying assets may be equity, debt, hybrid, or maybe gold. So there are different kinds of mutual fund. First thing, as you said, that we know mutual fund, but still I feel that there is so much to learn, because most of the time, first thing what comes in mind is that mutual fund is equity mutual fund. But equity is one, there are different kinds of mutual funds. Second thing, depending on again your objective of investment, you can decide to invest in equity, debt, gold, or the hybrid funds. Within equity also, you have large cap fund, you have mid cap fund, you have a small cap fund. There can be multi cap fund which can invest across the market capitalization. There are sectoral funds, there are thematic funds. So it may be a bit confusing, But still, because as he said, I fully agree with him that in long term, equity is the only asset class which has potential to beat inflation, which can give you higher returns, which is required basically. See, if somebody says that there is a fixed deposit which can give you post-tax inflation adjusted returns, then definitely that is good. But because if I want to achieve my goal in long term and I have to beat inflation, so there is no other choice than equity. Okay. So equity, maybe that right now to understand, as I said, large cap, mid cap, small cap, different kinds of mutual fund, but definitely we can learn about that. Objective is that people should invest in equity, and mutual fund is a good vehicle to invest in equity. After this, once you decide that equity is one and other goals, you have debt-oriented mutual funds where we have bond funds, we have income fund. There are schemes which invest in short-term instrument which have comparatively very less risk. So that kinds of mutual fund can also be considered, especially when you are thinking about short-term investment, contingency fund, etc. And there are hybrid fund. If you are not very sure that whether equity will perform better or bond will give you high returns in coming time, there are hybrid fund which invest a percentage in equity as well as some amount in debt. Okay. So there are different kinds of mutual fund. One should understand that, and one should definitely invest in mutual fund. That is important.
But Ashish, how should one go about choosing a good mutual fund? Because like Pankaj already listed, there seem to be like a huge plethora. So how should I pick the best one?
Yeah, so like he mentioned, there are various kinds of funds. Now, to my mind, for a salaried investor who doesn't really want to spend too much time, analyzing what's happening in the markets, a diversified mutual fund makes a lot of sense. Now, these are funds which, buy, let's say, 40 or 50 companies based on what the fund manager thinks will do well. And there are today fund managers who've proven themselves over prolonged periods of time. I mean, you have funds which have been in existence for 15, 20 years. So these are funds which one can use to build up their equity exposures, and they can do it gradually over a period of time. Okay. So there are some good vehicles out there. Now, if there are people who understand markets, who have the acumen to decide, which sectors are going to do well, there are vehicles which can help them execute those strategies as well. So like Pankaj mentioned, there are sector funds. So if one believes that, technology sector is going to do well over the next 3 to 5 years, to be able to execute that strategy, you have sector funds. But remember, sector funds have a limited shelf life, which means that, if you get into a sector fund, you also need to decide when you're going to exit. And that, according to me, is the toughest part. So unless you understand markets, or, you're relying on an expert who's advising you constantly, I would advise against, buying a sector fund. A diversified mutual fund which has had a track record of 15, 20 years. Now, there are some funds which will go through bad periods over 1 or 2 years. Don't get too worried about that, because that's the nature of the market. And these funds have proven themselves, so it's best to build your exposures to these kind of products.
But Pankaj, how do you control this? Because like you said, sometimes the funds go through a bad patch. So how do you, and not just funds, that time equity also, the stock markets, they tank, exactly. They go up. How do you control human emotion? What's your advice to people?
See, first thing, before I come to this answer, I'll say, when you see a mutual fund, usually people say if my mutual fund has given 15% return, it is very good. If it has given 5% return, it is bad. But it is not the right thinking or right answer, because if market has not performed well during that period, market has given 2% return and my mutual fund scheme has been able to generate 8%, it means it has been able to beat in benchmark. So first thing, one has to compare that with the benchmark. Or similarly, there was time when equity market gave 25% return in 1 year, and if my mutual fund scheme was able to generate only 15%, then it was not good. Because if you are talking about a diversified, actively managed mutual fund scheme, it means objective is that it should be able to beat its benchmark. It should be able to outperform its benchmark return. So that is why first thing, you should compare your returns of mutual fund with benchmark. Second thing, risk adjusted return. That is very important, because don't see only return. You have to see whether returns have come because of wisdom of fund manager or because of extra risk taken in that scheme. So it is important to know that risk adjusted return. So two things. One, first you have to compare with the benchmark. If your scheme has not been able to outperform benchmark, then definitely it is not good to invest in that scheme. Second thing, once you realize that scheme has been able to give higher returns than benchmark, but where the returns have come from, that is second thing. So these are the basic things which you have to consider before you select a scheme for investment.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ashish. Thank you so much, Pankaj, for that. It's time for a very short break on NSE FinWiz powered by CNBC TV 18. And after this break, we go over to the audience as they put forth their questions to our experts. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Multiply your drive, get more out of life. Multiply your drive, get more out of life.
Presenting the Hyundai Accent, the real family sedan that multiplies your life. Hyundai.
न्यूज़ जो अंदर बोर्ड रूम्स में और एक कमरे में होती हैं, ये मेरे ख्याल से कंज्यूमर को जिस टाइम वो घर ले रहा है पता होना चाहिए। जो पैन इंडिया प्रोजेक्ट लॉन्चेस हो रहे हैं उनका क्या हाल है, आगे आने वाले एक्साइटिंग प्रोजेक्ट्स कौन से हैं। जो आज 3000 फुट के घर हैं, आप नजर रखिए 700-800 फुट के घर आएंगे तो टिकट कम होगा, not necessarily price.
BOP.in presents CNBC Awaaz Real Estate TV.
Presented by BOP.in, world's trusted realty experts.
When moods change, I change. I'm always changing.
Panasonic air conditioner with Eco-Navi technology intelligently senses, self-adjusts and saves up to 65%.
It's one touch to change the future.
A better life, a better world.
Panasonic.
This week on Young Turks, meet the duo of Kabir Suri and Rahul Khanna who promise to tickle your palate with their Asian cuisine brand Mama Goto and their chain of quick service restaurants Roll Mal and Speedy Chow. Also catch Ravi Gupta and Ashish Kumar who are bridging the gap between TV and social media with their iCouch app. And on YT on Campus, we bring you all the action from the Wharton India Economic Forum 2014 straight from Philadelphia. At these times only on CNBC TV 18.
Young Turks brought to you by Quicknick and Vasan Eye Care Hospital. Luxury partner Rado.
Tough times create tougher champions. ICICI Bank Business Banking and CNBC TV 18 present Emerging India Awards 2014, powered by CRISIL, honoring SMEs who have stood tall in these tough times. To nominate yourself, log on to emergingindia.moneycontrol.com.
Presenting sponsor ICICI Bank Business Banking. Powered by CRISIL.
Welcome back. You're watching NSE FinWiz powered by CNBC TV 18. It's now time to go over to the audience as they ask their questions of our experts.
Normally when we say, what do we call as life insurance, the private sector, life insurance companies, they do say that, they invest our money in debts. So what do they exactly mean by that? Because, mostly I've seen that, the portfolio managers, do not disclose, what kind of debts they are investing in. And, at times, we have faced that, after 5-6 years also, the policies is not, returning anything, but it is actually taking out our money. So, wherein we actually get that entire information from? I mean, on debts, what exactly they mean and wherein do they invest, all those kind of information from where we can get those information.
Sure, Ashish. So, in insurance products, you have broadly two kinds of plans. Okay, you have the traditional plans and you have the market-linked plans. The traditional plan is what you're referring to, I presume, because those are plans which do not necessarily disclose the underlying portfolio, but they typically end up investing in debt instruments, and they give out guaranteed bonuses depending on what the scheme has done. Okay. Now, like I mentioned earlier, ideally you should look at insurance as just a cover, which means that if you're the breadwinner of the family and God forbid you're not around tomorrow, then the amount that your family inherits should be enough to cover their expenses if they were to put it aside in, let's say, even a fixed deposit. Okay, but often we tend to mix insurance with investments because we believe that, if I am paying a premium, at least I should get something back. But what actually happens behind the scenes is whatever premium you give, some part of the premium they use to cover the risk, which is, if something goes wrong, then they give your family a lump sum amount. The other part they invest to give a return. Now, typically that investment part is not very efficient because there are several charges, and as well as, like I mentioned, they are invested mainly in fixed income. So the other kind of plans are market link plans, right? Now, market link plans disclose portfolios. You can choose, where your money is invested in market link plans. Now, depending on how markets behave, whether it's equities or whether it's fixed income, your returns will be in line with that market. So my advice, to a salaried person is that rather than, trying to expect something back from the premiums that you paid, you ensure that you're covering your life by just paying a premium and don't look at it as an investment. You will still be left with enough money to invest.
You mentioned about goal setting. So that seems a little difficult for a layman like me when I want to set my goals because returns are the maximum that I expect all the time. So how do you suggest this goal setting should be approached? For instance, if I have 1 lakh rupees to invest somewhere, how much goes into mutual funds, how much into equity, how much into anything else? So that kind of a planning, is there some kind of a planning rule that you can tell us that we can follow?
See, when I said goal setting, it does not mean that if you have 1 lakh rupee to where to invest that, because that is asset allocation. Goal means, see what happens. First thing is contingency. First and foremost thing that I should have some money, at least 3 to 6 months of my monthly expenses easily available. So that is first thing, contingency. Second thing comes protection. And protection also, first thing is health insurance, because if you have been investing somewhere but you need money for health care, then whatever money has been invested for some other goals, that will be consumed here. So health insurance. That then comes life insurance. If somebody is dependent on you and God forbid something happens, then where the money comes from, because all the goals will remain there. Then comes your different goals. When I say goal, there are need and wants. So definitely needs comes first before wants. And when I say need, it may be children education, children wedding, retirement planning. Then buying a car or buying a bigger house may be something like want. So you have to identify your goal, which are very, very important.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you, Pankaj, so much. And thank you guys for having us here. Thank you so much. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of NSE FinWiz, powered by CNBC TV 18. This time we were in Kolkata at the offices of Century Ply, and we hope that we've been able to guide their young employees secure a financially stable future for themselves. From the entire team, many thanks for watching.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Presented by National Stock Exchange.
Welcome to India's business newsroom. CNBC TV 18 is India's #1 business news channel in 2014. CNBC TV 18, 14 years of business leadership.
फॉर्म हो गया सर. अब सर एक फोटो. जरूर. सर आपका एड्रेस प्रूफ.
ये लीजिए मेरा आधार कार्ड.
हो गया सर.
ICICI बैंक टैब बैंकिंग से घर बैठे सेविंग्स अकाउंट खुलवाइए और टाइम बचाइए. लाइफ के बाकी इंपॉर्टेंट कामों के लिए SMS कीजिए टैब 567666 पर. ICICI बैंक, ख्याल आपका.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Tata Crucible Corporate Quiz 2013, the national finale of Tata Crucible. It's time for us to move straight into the battle here today.
This week, Tata Crucible completes the final leg. 8 national teams from India's biggest corporate houses don their thinking caps to win the coveted national finals at these times.
A knowledge initiative by the Tata Group. Leadership with trust.
हेलो हेलो माइक माइक तो देवी और सज्जनों, ये पब्लिक है, जनसाधारण.
the common people.
The city is still not safe.
वो पब्लिक जो सब जानती है और वही पब्लिक जो अब तक खामोश थी. But not anymore.
पब्लिक को चाहिए काम.
Because अब आया है एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म जहां everyone is welcome.
मेरे देशवासियों.
आर्दे मेरी जान. Idea is big, पर फंडा सिंपल है बॉस.
लोगों को आवाज उठानी चाहिए.
दिल में जो है अब जुबान पे होगा. Because honestly, boss, when it comes to democracy, we believe in open mic. Powered by Green Lamb Laminate. Get the best benefits for you and your family. With a specially designed health insurance cover, National Mediclaim Policy. For online purchase, log on to www.niconline.com. National Insurance Company. Thoda simple socho. Insurance